The purpose of my presentation this evening is to raise your awareness of the Sheffield City Council Digital Connectivity Strategy. Now, the aim of that strategy is to ensure that Sheffield has access to the best broadband, the best mobile and the best wireless networks at the earliest opportunity, so that people and businesses of the city can benefit from the socio-economic advantages that this can enable. The strategy was developed by Sheffield City Council in line with .Chef, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about .Chef later on. So, for the purpose of the connectivity strategy, digital connectivity is described as the means by which electronic devices and things communicate with each other, with private networks and with the internet. I don't have to tell you guys, but Gartner estimate that there are around 14 billion electronic devices or things connected to the internet today, from computers to smartphones to tablets to my internet-enabled smart vacuum cleaner. Digital connectivity itself, in terms of the strategy, infrastructurally here we're talking about fixed line networks, so legacy fibre to the cabinet copper networks and modern full fibre networks. Mobile networks, again legacy 4G and then increasingly modern 5G, and wireless networks such as Wi-Fi and IoT. So, currently, connectivity of existing technology is pretty good in Sheffield. We've got 96.5% coverage of superfast broadband, that's ahead of the national average, and 4G coverage is pretty good, depending on your mobile network operator, with E having the greatest coverage in the region. But that's not happened on its own. There's been a lot of public sector intervention to help to get to this stage. The current levels of coverage would not have happened if left to market forces alone. The public sector in Sheffield and South Yorkshire has invested heavily to increase coverage. Over £24 million has been invested by the city region, central government and the South Yorkshire local authorities in extending superfast broadband over the last 5 years. It's also invested heavily to increase demand it's also invested in demand stimulation to increase take-up and usage of that fibre to the cabinet connectivity. We now have 45% take-up of superfast broadband in areas that BT and Virgin previously considered uneconomic. So that was good news. The bad news is that although we're well covered for the existing generation of mobile and broadband connectivity, where the next generation of broadband and mobile comms is concerned, it's not so great. Sheffield has only 1.6% coverage of full fibre connectivity. That compares poorly with other core cities, with the national average of 8%, and worse still to Europe and beyond. The UK itself has the third worst coverage in the EU, with only Belgium and Greece having lower coverage. Portugal has the highest coverage in Europe, that's at 89%, and then when you look further afield, Japan has 97%, South Korea has 100% full fibre. So the message is clear: if we want to improve coverage, then we need to continue to intervene. Full fibre, why are we doing this? Well, full fibre networks and 5G enable a wide range of socio-economic benefits, and this slide provided a list of some of the examples there. There's also now empirical evidence that of the economic value of wider broadband coverage, faster broadband, and increased take-up of broadband. So individually, they all have an economic benefit on GDP. Combined, that effect is compound. And superfast has added 5% to UK GDP over the last 12 years. Full fibre and 5G, that's estimated to add over £1 billion just to the Sheffield economy over the next 15 years. So we have developed a strategy that, if implemented, will ensure that Sheffield catches up with the EU, that it keeps pace with other UK cities, and ideally that it gets ahead of the curve. This strategy is about providing the infrastructure required by businesses and residents, and it's about providing that connectivity now, ahead of demand, so that when it is needed, it's there, ready and waiting. There's no lag, no 2 or 3 year lag, because 2 or 3 years after demand, it's too late. The strategy itself consists of 5 themes. access for all. So this is about increasing coverage and take-up across the whole of the city. Economic growth. This is about business connectivity and support for businesses to understand the benefits of connectivity for them, for competitive advantage. It's also about innovation, adopting the latest technology innovations at an earlier stage. It's about exploiting public assets, so reusing city infrastructure to deliver quickly and economically. And finally, it's about enabling the wider benefits, so using that connectivity to support and enable digital inclusion, public service transformation and smart city initiatives. The strategy itself lists a programme of 15 activities and projects that we will implement over the next 2 to 3 years. Following almost a decade of austerity and year reductions in funding, combined with rising pressures for adult and children's social care, the Council's ability to fund digital connectivity is limited at best. Therefore, we have to find innovative ways of resourcing investment which is needed. This includes working collaboratively with the private sector to remove barriers to their investment in Sheffield. And it's also about maximising the value of the assets that we own, such as street lights, CCTV columns, council buildings, social housing and underground duct. For example, a key project is that we want to procure what's known as a concession contract, and this will enable suppliers to install their equipment on council assets to provide connectivity for 5G, further public access Wi-Fi and IoT in exchange for a small annual rental fee for those assets. So although coverage of full fibre and 5G in Sheffield is still very poor, there have been some positive announcements recently. There's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes to enable these announcements to be made. For example, we've been working very hard to remove the barriers that previously prevented Openreach from investing in full fibre networks in Sheffield. Openreach recognised this recently, describing Sheffield as setting the benchmark for collaboration, which is really positive. So that's just about it for me. I'm happy to answer any questions, but before I finish, I did say that I would mention DocShef. So DocShef is Sheffield's digital coalition. It consists of individuals and organisations across the city that have an interest in maximising the use of digital. DocShef is Sheffield's way of addressing what is often known as the smart city agenda. It's about breaking down the challenges that face the city into a number of smaller domains, such as skills, health, the economy and infrastructure. And the intention is that for each domain, we find ways in which digital can have a significant positive effect on the lives and life chances of our residents and businesses. DocShef has an ambition for the city to build on its growing reputation as a digital leader by helping to combine resources and efforts of those people to make a difference. So if you visit the DocShef website, not only can you download a copy of the digital connectivity strategy, but you'll also be able to find out more about how to get involved with DocShef. So that's it for me. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, David. Any questions for David for a couple of minutes? Well, I've got one. How do you see the 5G rollout program? I was speaking to, I was at an event, the Meetup down in Reading the other week, and they had a 5G guy out there, and he was sort of trying to explain how it sort of happened in different areas, and then eventually we won't see this sort of following day everything's 5G. How's that going to roll out in Sheffield?
In speaking to the mobile network operators and shared infrastructure providers, 5G will develop over a number of technology iterations. Initially the announcements by E and Free, for example, there will in effect be sort of a development of 4G rather than pure play 5G. Mm-hmm. Initially that will offer speeds of 150 to 200 megabits per second, and over the years we'll get to 1 gigabit per second down those speeds. Speaking to the mobile network operators, they are really looking at upgrading their existing macro cells across the country, making them potentially taller, strengthening them, putting additional equipment on those and sharing those across the mobile network operators. And that's really where they're going to start, and they're really speaking to them, they see that as how those early iterations of 5G are going to be implemented over the next 2 to 3 years. Longer term, what we think is going to happen is that there will be, as demand increases in denser, more populated areas of the city, there will be a requirement for small cells. Now, those radios will need to be installed on council-owned assets, such as street lights, CCTV columns, and inside buildings as well. And one of the projects, the first project really, they're looking to get off the ground in the concession space, is to start to develop the requirements for a 5G concession between really now and the end of this calendar year, to speak to a wide range of people, including mobile network operators, to develop a set of requirements, and then to test those with the market to go out for a concession contract early next year. And the idea being that we make council assets such as streetlights, CCTV columns, council buildings, social housing rooftops available for the mobile network operators to provide a wholesale open access 5G infrastructure shared across the four mobile network operators on a fair and equitable basis, rather than having 4 independent densified 5G infrastructures across the city. Now, speaking to the market, there is interest in that, but the proof of the pudding really will be when we go out to market.
And how will you incentivise them to, they say we've got 98% coverage, but there's obviously 2% and less dense places and places where they're not going to get the return. How will you incentivise them to make their networks more available?
Probably, if I refer to the rural broadband scheme, so this is the project run by BD UK, Broadband Delivery UK, out of the DCMS. That really subsidised the network infrastructure of, it went to market in South Yorkshire. Openreach won the contract, and it subsidised the rollout of the network into the 20% of the region that BT and Openreach and the market failed to deliver, had no plans to reach. So that was a scheme led by government, with funding from government, from local bodies, in our case Sheffield City region, and from the winning contractor, in this case Openreach. So that's how the market was incentivised for rural fibre to the cabinet broadband. In terms of fibre to the cabinet, fibre to the premise infrastructure, you might have seen this week that there's been a couple of announcements by government that they are looking at what they call an outside-in programme, and that is about funding, helping to fund the provision of full fibre networks to the 20% of the country that it believes the market won't reach. Details are a little bit sketchy on that at the moment. But there's a lot. So that's on the supply side. On the demand side, there are things like vouchers which subsidise the cost of connectivity, which again are operated across Sheffield and South Yorkshire.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.